Welcome on back, guys. We are here to cover another class. We have done the Sorcerer, the Barbarian, and the Druid. And I most definitely have to say, so far, my money's on the Druid. Um, but both the Barbarian and the Druid are complex classes. That is why they are 1 and the Sorcerer was 2. Sorcerer was really clean cut. It was easy to go through. There wasn't much variation in what you could do and how you could build. I know the Necro is, so when we finally get to the Necro, we'll discuss that. But definitely the Druid was... My money's on the Druid. That's all I gotta say. So moving right along, we are going to, in this video, go over the Rogue. Now, I did go over that a little bit in my first video with the Sorcerer. Again, Sorcerer was not that complex at all. We hit level 2. We got to the town. But I went over a little bit of each character. I went and looked at them, and I did the Rogue and closed, opened up that, did the Sorcerer. I went over everybody and explained, this is what I wanted to do, yada, yada, yada. So without further ado, those of you that are here for the Rogue, the time is now. We are in. Alright, let's go ahead and do that. And we're going to go for... Ooh, I like that one. I don't like that skin tone, though. Looks like he's got jaundice. Yeah, that just looks like jaundice. Or maybe it's just like a real bronze, but it looks kind of like jaundice. Like he's sick. There we go. That looks like a natural tan. Just a slight shade off, but... Oh, that shade off was really fucking with me. Sorry. We're going to go with dark green because rogue, greed, money, rogue, thief, thief, rogue, green, money, money, green. It's self-explanatory. And with the rogue, we are also going to run... Yeah, we'll run that one with some tribal-looking symbols. And we will do the green moss because green, money, money, green, rogue, thief, thief, rogue. We get the picture. We get the picture. We'll go with Shaddai, or Shaddy, however you want to pronounce it. We're going to start, and as always, we're going to jump in as World Tier 2 Veteran. As always, to skip your cutscenes, it is Escape on mouse and keyboard, press and hold. B on an Xbox controller, press and hold. And Circle on a PlayStation controller, press and hold.
Was never meant for humankind.
So, diving right in.
I should find better shelter before I freeze.
Yeah, before you freeze. It's okay, we're gonna be okay. Right, so for a rogue you have Invigorating Strike, which is melee, dealing 6 with an increased energy regeneration by 20. You have Blade Shift, which has a quick stab for 4 damage and allows you to move freely through the enemies for 3 seconds. You have Puncture, which is a short ranged blade throw for 6 damage, and every third cast will slow an enemy. Crit strikes will always slow. You have Heartseeker, which is fire an arrow that seeks an enemy, dealing 7 damage and increasing your crit chance against them by 3% for 4 seconds, up to 15%. Then you have Forceful Arrow. Fire a powerful arrow at an enemy, dealing 6 damage. Every third cast makes the enemy vulnerable for 2 seconds. Vulnerable will come in handy later if I remember the rogue right from early... the early beta when I played, because I think that was what I originally mained in the beta, was the rogue. And then they weren't allowing the druid and the necro early on in the beta, and then the very last day it was out, they let people get their hands on the necro and the druid. I happened to go and do a necro, and I loved it. I immediately fell in love with it, and I ran with it, and I didn't look back. Within an hour, I had it up to level 12. I said, okay, I love the Necro. This is what I'm going with. Let me try the Sorcerer just to see what it's like. and I maybe got, you know, an hour in of gameplay with it, and I only got to like level 9. I was like, no, not for me. And it's not even the leveling, it's just for me, it was the lack of variation and customization within the class. And maybe it gets better later on. We will find out because I do have a sorcerer game, a playthrough that we're going to do where we work on leveling up and everything. Um, but again, in this video, we're going to cover the rogue. Let me get back on topic. ADHD brain. It's going nuts. I'm super excited about this game and everything that's in it. So I apologize for any of this random like off track ways that we take. It seems like the best one is 6 damage, 7 damage, 6 damage, 4 damage, 6 damage. That's a melee. You know, ranged. Third attack is vulnerable. This is increasing crit chance, and this is every third is a slow. So vulnerable, slow, damage. So let's look at this. That's got a ricochet. Okay. Forceful arrow with an increased crit chance and a knockback, or crit chance and pierces through vulnerable. I'm not too keen on the piercing through vulnerable, so I'm going to stay away from forceful arrow. You have enhanced puncture, which gain two energy when it damages a crowd control. Crowd control is a slow. Okay, so your third cast will also ricochet up to 2 times. Crit strikes will always ricochet. So if you really work on your crit chance, like I mean really work on your crit chance, this could be your best friend, because it literally says that it will always ricochet. Always. It doesn't mean, it's limited up to 2 times. It says it will always ricochet because it's a crit. Now, I guess we'll find out later on, because that may be the direction that I go. In a spread, 35 of its base. Hitting an enemy with at least 2 blades at once makes them vulnerable. Yeah, so we're going to go with Heartseeker for right now, just because it's got the ricochet and the higher damage. So that's the range we're going to go right now. Moving on to the secondary skills, you have Barrage, Twisting Blades, Flurry, Penetrating, and Rapid Fire. Now, from what I know of the rogue right now, that's 50 damage. Okay? And this is 30 damage with a 20% chance to ricochet 1 time. And ricochets deal 40% of the base damage, and the base damage is 6, so you're looking at 2, maybe 3 if they round it up for you. That's 13, and it makes them take 8% increased damage while impaled. So increased damage for me while they're impaled, and this is what impales them. After a second and a half, the blade returns to you, piercing enemies for 21. So it's an exit, increased damage, and a return. So everyone in between you and your target. So essentially, 13 on the way out, 21 on the way in, and it's 24. That's 34. 34 damage, plus they take 8% increased damage while they're impaled. But they're only impaled for a second and a half. That's not a whole lot of time. So keeping a ranged skill is definitely going to help you. Yeah, alright, so we did that. Alright, Flurry. Flurry of stabs and slashes, striking enemies in front of you 4 times and dealing a total of 18 damage to each. So, we're not even going to talk about that. That just does not seem... I see that it's imbuable, but so is all the rest of these. And that does not seem viable enough for a rogue who essentially is like a glass cannon. You don't want to get that close to use your daggers. Don't get it twisted. You can. You can definitely become, a hybrid with a high sustain and a high damage. You totally could. But why would you want to risk yourself like that? Especially if you choose to go hardcore, because this is supposed to also help y'all in hardcore to understand your class and make an educated guess before you just dive right in. That does not seem like a accurate idea. Um, but then we have penetrating shot. Fire an arrow that pierces through all enemies in a line, dealing 23 damage. While that would be nice, energy cost being 35 and the output only being 23, this is a 25 cost with 50 damage. So, logically speaking, that seems like the smarter way to go. It's rapid fire. So to go over rapid fire, each subsequent arrow from rapid fire has 5% increased crit chance, up to 25% for the fifth arrow, which is nice. And then you gain 15 energy per cast when it damages a vulnerable enemy. Increased critical damage for 3 seconds after you evade. I'm going to have to go with that, only because eventually it seems like this might be a better idea for the vulnerability. Or you could go with that and use the fundamental to make them vulnerable. So it seems like improved rapid fire would be the better way to go. Moving down here to Shadow Step, become unstoppable. Move quickly through the shadows to stab your victim from behind for 21 damage. Gain 50% increased movement speed for 2 seconds afterwards. So essentially, you're gonna go Shadow Step. You're gonna get behind your enemy. They're not gonna know it. You're gonna backstab them, hit them for 21 damage. Then you gain 50% movement speed, and if you need to, GTFO. So that is nice. Caltrops, usually my personal favorite. I'm not gonna lie. Leap backwards and throw caltrops on the ground, dealing 13 damage and slowing enemies by 50%. Last 6 seconds. I love the caltrops. I don't even want to go over dash. I'm going to for you guys, but I personally, I love the caltrops. Versatile in every way, shape, or form. Like right here, cold damage, which is chills for 20% per second. Holy damn. And then you have the crit chance increase against enemies inside the caltrops, double if they're vulnerable. So, I mean, you're just talking about a whole lot of crit chance and possibly slowing. So there's ways around all this stuff to make it more useful. Then you have the dash forward and slash enemies for 11 damage. It's not really, like a big deal. I do like the ability that you have a dash, but at the same time, this is a backflip. It's the same thing. The dash through to get away or the backflip to get away. In, the heat of a moment, you're surrounded by enemies, you can backflip or dash, and you're getting around the enemies either way you look at it. The only thing you can't do is, well, actually, I think I did see them backflip over a wall. So there is that idea, and a barbarian can leap over a wall too. So moving down here to this section. I don't personally like dash, that's why I'm moving on. I don't think dash would be viable enough for a high output end game at all. Caltrops have a greater chance of the high output, in my opinion. So moving on, concealment. Vanish from sight, gain advanced form of stealth. Will not be removed by taking damage. Concealment makes you unstoppable, which also grants you 30% movement speed. And move freely through enemies for its duration. Using an attack skill during concealment will break concealment. So, use this to get the fuck away. GTFO. solid hard way to GTFO. Smoke grenade. The dazed. Dazed enemies cannot attack or use skills, but are still able to move. So it's kind of like a stun, but it's not a stun. That makes sense. Then you have Dark Shroud. Surround yourself with up to 5 protective shadows. Gain 8% damage reduction per active shadow. Each time you take direct damage, that damage is reduced and a shadow is consumed. Well, that would normally be nice. 8% per active shadow. That's 40% damage reduction. That actually does seem pretty nice. Now I'm at a toss-up between Smoke Grenade and Dark Shroud. Poison Trap. Place a trap that arms after 1.25 seconds. So, 1.25 seconds. It activates when an enemy moves within range, applying 104 poisoning damage over 9 seconds to enemies in the area. You can have 4 armed traps out at once. Oh, that is a doozy. Excuse me. See, because on one hand, the smoke grenade prevents them from attacking or using skills, which, to be fair, can keep you alive and help you get away probably a whole lot faster, especially if used right. But then you have Dark Shroud, which reduces the damage you take by 40% if you have all 5, and just in general keeps you it keeps you alive. It keeps you from having to run away because you have that damage reduction. But like, let's say for example you get into a boss fight, there's no running away anyways. You're gonna need the damage reduction. But then on the flip side, you also have the poison trap. Excuse me. I'm gonna say any 3 of those work, just because it's just, oh, that is so hard to go. 10% chance to not be consumed. Okay. At least 4. Gain 8 crit chance. Or movement speed. Go with crit chance. That tells me Dark Shroud right now is a better way to go, because not only does it provide you a 10% chance that they won't be consumed, meaning you still have your 40 instead of the 32 if you get hit, but, well, you have at least 4, which means 1 can die, and you still be able to summon another one back in time before, another one dies. With 4, you get an 8% crit chance increase. Just, oh, this is great. See, now this makes it look good. Enemies affected by the smoke grenade take increased damage. So not only can they not attack or use skills, but now they take increased damage. Lucky hit, direct damage, 25% chance to release cooldown. Oh, excuse me, sorry. Or by 3 seconds instead if the enemy is vulnerable. Yeah. No. The enemy is vulnerable, slowed, or chilled will daze them for 20% longer. Well, 20% longer is 1 second. So, instead of 4 seconds, it's 5 seconds. Ah. Alright, smoke grenade would only be useful for the increased damage, and the other 2, it doesn't seem viable unless you're built for vulnerability, or you're built to, do that frequently, like slowing, and because I mean even here the vulnerable is in there too, so 3 seconds for if they're vulnerable to reduce the cooldown, or 1 second. I don't think you need it all that often, but even with the increased damage, that may be the better way to go. But it's just a 25% chance, it's not guaranteed. So I would say go for the guaranteed, go with subverting. Now to cover the poison trap. Knocks down enemies for 1.5 when it activates. So it knocks enemies down and has a 30% chance to reset the imbuement when activated. Subverting poison trap. Deal 10% increased poison damage to enemies standing inside your poison trap. So not only does it knock them down, but it increases the damage I deal to them. Oh, no. It increases the poison damage. I deal 10% increased poison damage to enemies inside. Okay, so that tells me that this one's better to go with. Countering poison trap. Because it has a 30% chance to reset your imbuement skill cooldowns. So, and here we are to imbuement, the next step. So you're prepped before you even get there. That's nice. So I would have to say it's a toss-up between Dark Shroud and Poison Trap, unless you're just that kind of guy. I'll take damage reduction over 15% increased damage. I mean, that's 40% damage reduction. Lovely. And then we have Shadow Imbuement. Imbue your weapons with festering shadows. Your next two imbuable skills deal shadow damage and infect enemies for 6 seconds. Infected enemies explode on death, dealing 12 to surrounding enemies. If the infection expires before the enemy dies, it will deal 12 damage to only that enemy. Okay, so shadow doesn't seem to critical chance. Vulnerable. No. Oh. Shadow isn't that great. Poison imbuement. Imbue your weapons with lethal poison. Your next two imbuable skills deal poison damage and apply 100% of their base damage as additional poisoning damage. Ooh, that sounds nice. That sounds really nice. Duration increased by 1 second. Crit strikes with poison imbued deal 75% increased poisoning. Lucky hit, poison imbued skills have a 30% chance to apply double the amount of poisoning damage over time. Alright, so we can take double the DOT or a flat increase on poisoning damage. Well, not flat increase, a percentage increase, but basically like a flat increase, the way I look at it. I'd have to say, I am so sorry. Mixed poison imbuement. Poison imbued skills have up to a 30% chance to apply double the amount of poisoning damage over time. I'm gonna have to say I'll take that 30% chance over crit striking right now. Just because crit striking, you may get it, you may not. It all depends on the items you get and everything. And the idea right now is that if you do, oh my god, if you do end up getting crit items, end game wise, you can always respec and go back and change what you want, and you could, refund that and go with that. Totally, that's still acceptable. Both of them are acceptable, but going off the idea that you have a high crit strike, you can't do that because you don't know if you will. So I would have to say that mixed poison imbuement would be better. So cold imbuement deals cold damage and chill. 30% to make vulnerable. 20% to crowd controlled. Yeah, don't go cold. Don't go cold, and I'd say poison all the way. And I would definitely say get to know these 3 skills here. Yeah. So let's move on to these ultimates. We're going to run into our 30-minute deadline again with this probably. Shadow Clone. It deals 60% of your damage. Okay. See, and that's too much to bet 50 seconds on. I couldn't do that. Yeah, I'd have to say Shadowclone's going to be your better way to go. With Unstoppable and dealing an additional 20%, making his 60 and 80%. Shadowclone is definitely the way to go. And then you come down here to these. I'd have to say close quarters is going to be better. Just because it's marksman or cutthroat. And the skills grant 10% attack speed for 8 seconds. And while both attack speed bonuses are active, you deal 20% increased damage against crowd controlled. So basically, if you use a marksman and then a cutthroat, you get an attack speed bonus at a base. So you ain't got to worry about nothing there. But, while both are active for those 8 seconds, you deal 20% increased damage. You can corner anyone you want at that point. Because that attack speed bonus is, you know, you already are balling with the attack speed. So, that in and of itself is definitely going to get you a win later down the road. So let's go down here and see how well we are broken at base. So it looks like we're not entirely broken at base with that. But then again, nothing else deals more damage, so out of the gate brokenness, a rogue, not so much. But at the same time, let's look at this really quick. That's 36 per second, just 26 to 40 per hit. And these are 12 to 18 with faster attack speed. These are damage to close, and these are damage to distant. Which is probably why I got that second wolf the way that I did. No. It seems like you will struggle a little bit with a rogue off base. Like, you may get lucky, or you may not. It's just one of those things that you would just have to take the risk on. Yeah, and there I go, getting hit because I wasn't paying attention. I looked at the map. And time.
Another abandoned
Bingo.
town. Demons.
So now we've made it here into town.
Fangs in the dark. Ah! He bit me!
Careful! He's a wild one.
What's it to you?
Come, I'll explain.
Yep, sure you will. Boop. I'm waiting. So, luckily, the rogue is just like the sorcerer. We had enough time to make it here to town, and we'll probably hit level 2, and I'll explain what to do with that level 2 in this video, whereas the other classes so far, the barbarian and the druid, I have not been able to explain that. So, with level 2, when you go to your abilities, sometimes it is nice to go and upgrade, you know, down the tree, but this is off the idea that you will crit strike. So it's better instead to just increase your damage. I've got to say that's the better idea that I've always had for it. But without further ado, y'all, this is the Rogue. We will be doing more with every class, so you guys can follow me along the way. You can see where I mess up if you're looking for you know, a hardcore run. But y'all, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. I love your faces. Stay beautiful, stay awesome, and we will catch you guys next time. Goodbye!